Gather round, Lightning fans. Sami Claus has come to town and it is time to give out some presents. Hi everyone, Sami Fleury here. Welcome back to Bolt Action, the series where I am more than happy to be wrong about my assessment of the team as long as it means that they keep winning, especially against a team like Vegas. That was such a good win to have. Today's going to be a little bit of a different video, albeit a properly thematic one. Really, we're not going to talk about any of the 3 games that came up in this past week, other than just to recap the score real quick. The Lightning finished their road trip in Calgary and lose to the Flames 4-2. They come back home, host the St. Louis Blues and win 6-1, and finish out a short homestand by defeating the reigning, defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights 5-4. And as I already said, that win against the Vegas Golden Knights was so desperately needed. It has to be a tremendous confidence booster for the team as a whole. 2 very much needed points in the standings and puts them in a good position to finish out the year pretty strong. Today we're going to go through a bit of a rapid fire section here, and we are going to open up my bag of goodies and we're going to see what I would be giving to each of the Tampa Bay Lightning if it was actually up to me. And if any of this actually happens, you can go ahead and thank your good old pal Sami Claus. You're welcome. So first of all, for Nikita Kucherov, we have a Rocket Richard Trophy. In this era of hockey where you have such incredible goal scorers like Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Austin Matthews, Nathan MacKinnon, Nikita Kucherov is criminally underrated for his shooting ability. He's primarily made a name for himself as a playmaker, as a dynamic passer, and somebody who can just get the job done. And even at that, I still feel like he is just under the radar every single season. As of right now, he is still the league leader in points, and I think he will consistently be in the conversation for the Art Ross Trophy through the end of the season, maybe even the Hart Trophy, depending on how things shape up with the Lightning. But I think it would be an incredible achievement for him to have the league lead in goals and add the Rocket Richard Trophy to his trophy case and just cement his place in the league as truly one of the elite goal scorers in this league. For Brayden Point, we have the Lady Byng Award. For those of you that don't know, the Lady Byng Award, and I'm going to butcher the exact language here, but it's essentially who has the best sportsmanship and the most gentlemanly-like conduct in the league, who also exhibits a high level of play at the professional level. Brayden Point has been nominated for this award 5 times, and he has never won. Now, granted, every person that he's lost to has rightfully won that award. He plays hard, he plays the right way, he's an incredible sportsman. I think it's a matter of time, a matter of when he gets that award, less than if, and I would just love for it to be this season. For Steven Stamkos, we have, surprise, surprise, a contract! Look, we don't have to rehash all the drama that has surrounded Steven Stamkos this season. We'll maybe do that in a different video. But suffice it to say that we have been here before with his kind of contract disputes. It's not a question. Stamkos wants to finish his career in Tampa. Plenty of the fans, and I don't know about the players, want him to finish his career in Tampa. In a contract year, he's a point per game player. He is still contributing at a high level. I don't know why you wouldn't pay this man. Julien Brisebois, please make my Christmas wish come true and get Steven Stamkos a contract. I swear, don't you trade him. For Victor Hedman, a defense partner that knows what the heck they're doing. We know exactly the quality of player that Victor Hedman is, but his supporting cast has gotten significantly younger, and I would say worse. You've lost such key veteran defensemen like Ryan McDonough, Luke Chen, Jan Ruda, Kevin Shattenkirk along the way, and you've replaced them with younger guys who need development. And what I've noticed about Hedman this year is he's often picking up the slack for mistakes that the rest of the team is making, in particular with his defense partners. His most common defense partner this season has been Nick Perbix, who is young and is making younger defenseman type mistakes. But with a young defenseman, you want some veteran leadership, so I understand why you would pair him with Victor Hedman. Ideally, I would like to see him play with a defenseman with some more experience, somebody who is less prone to mistakes, like an Erik Cernak perhaps, but I understand the reason once again. I would just like Victor Hedman to be freed up to play more of his style instead of feeling like he has to be on his heels and cleaning up mistakes. For Brandon Hagel, we have a point per game season. Brandon Hagel currently has 28 points through 33 games, in no small part because he is playing top line minutes and he is playing on power play number 1, one of the most lethal power plays in the league. This is Brandon Hagel's 2nd full season with the team. Last year, he put up 54 points in 81 games, and next year, he starts his big contract extension at 8 years, $6.5 million. He's living up to his potential, and that is phenomenal to see. he is contributing to the team in a big way and solidifying his position as part of that future core down the road, meaning he is having a now impact and he will have a future impact. I can think of no better way for him to cement that position than with a point per game season this season. For Mikhail Sergachev, we have a return to power play number 1. Mikhail Sergachev started the season on power play number 1 instead of Victor Hedman, with this idea that him being the newest, highest paid defenseman on the Lightning roster and being that defensive leader further on down the road, that he should assume that responsibility of quarterbacking power play number 1. His production has dropped a little bit and he's been battling an injury as of late, but he's still on pace for roughly 50 points this season. But still, I would love to see him step back up into that power play number 1 role, show that he is capable of not only running that power play, but that he is capable of the defensive style of leadership that this team will need going forward once Victor Hedman does someday hang up the skates. For Nick Paul, we have a Selke nomination. If you don't know, the Selke Award goes to the forward who exhibits the best defensive aspects of the game, and at this point, Patrice Bergeron has won it so many times that you may as well just rename it to the Patrice Bergeron Award. But Patrice Bergeron is no longer in the league, so the award is inevitably going to go to someone new this year. Now, I say a Selke nomination for a reason. Nick Paul is probably the best defensive forward on the Lightning roster right now, but he's not the best defensive forward in the league. He's still kind of coming into his own. And in a league where you have, Mitch Marner and Sasha Barkov, they are probably your front runners for that. But if Nick Paul continues to hone his game a little bit more, I think he could regularly be in the conversation for the Selke/Bergeron Award in the future. For Anthony Cirelli, we have a 20-goal season. Anthony Cirelli is one of the hardest working forwards on the ice, and ever since he's been a part of the Lightning, depending on roster and situation, he's been anywhere between the first and third lines throughout his entire career. His goal record for a season was 19 back in the 2018-2019 season, and he's currently on an 8-year, $6.25 million deal. And ideally for a player like that, you'd love to see 20 plus goals in a season. Now, granted, right now he is a depth forward because of the talent and the current core that is there. But in the future, when he is part of that core, you would love for a guy like Anthony Cirelli to give you 20 to 30 goals a season. So why not start right now? For Tanner Jeannot, we have a stable line. Tanner Jeannot is still a little bit contentious among Tampa Bay Lightning fans because of what the team ended up giving up to acquire him, and then the deal that they signed him to. In my mind, there's no doubt that Tanner Jeannot is an asset to this team if you utilize him well, but at current standing, he has had 11 different line combinations through the first 34 games of this season. Most recently, they've been playing him alongside Luke Glendening and Michael Eyssimont, and it remains to be seen how good of a line combination that is. For the Lightning, I think it's less about how do you utilize Tanner Jeannot and more about who do you put alongside him so that he can be freed up to play the style of game that you want him to play. Speaking of Michael Eyssimont, for him we have a home on the team. Isn't that nice? Michael Eyssimont is a young player. This is his third season in the league, but you can kind of take away one of those because in his first season, he played a grand total of 1 game for the Winnipeg Jets. Last season, he was shuffled between Winnipeg and San Jose before eventually landing with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this season, he's on pace to put up his career best numbers, which I know it's only really his second season. For a guy that makes basically league minimum for 1 more year, along with the style of game that he plays, I don't think it's crazy to say that he could find a long-term home in Tampa as a depth forward. If he continues to play well and he continues to grow, I think he could be a tremendous asset in rebuilding another archetype of that Yanni Gourde, Barclay Goodrow, and Blake Coleman line. For Darren Raddysh, we have the back of the net. The Lightning have Darren Raddysh on the team because he is capable of taking care of his own end first, and usually he is a second or third pair defenseman, meaning he's not often getting on the power play. But he does have an underrated offensive defenseman side to him. He sees the ice very well, he distributes the puck well, but he's not often put in that kind of position. In 54 NHL games, Darren Raddysh has only 1 goal, and it came last season. I can think of no better time for him to go ahead and notch up number 2. Darren Raddysh, let's get you another goal, bud. For Alexander Barre-Boulet, we have a full season in the NHL. I've talked about Alexander Barre-Boulet before as a potential depth forward of the future. He's still young, he's been shuffled between Tampa Bay and Seattle, but the most games that he's ever played in a single season is 16. The potential has been there, but the opportunity has not. He's in the final year of his contract right now. He's currently played 25 games, put up 5 goals, 3 assists for 8 points, but we need to see more from him. We need to see how he plays as the season goes on for a full season's worth of games to evaluate where he is, who he plays best with, how he might fit into the team long term if he does it all. So we need to see a full season from Alex Barre-Boulet. For one Nicholas Perbix, we have patience. I know I've had plenty to say about Nick Perbix this season, to the point where maybe that should have been my gift to him, was to talk about him less in a negative light through the rest of the season. But for every bit of blood pressure spiking that he has caused me through the first 34 games of the season, I have to remember that he is a young defenseman making young defenseman mistakes. He's not the strongest skater, but he is a good defenseman in his own right, and he's not afraid to get down and block shots when the situation calls for it. My concern is when it comes to things like puck moving or picking up defensive assignments. He is either a little bit too late to the game, meaning he's slow on his decision making, or he's trying to do something too fancy too quick, i.e. lacking patience. I think if he's able to slow down the game in his mind and utilize that hockey IQ that I know he has, his game could easily elevate through the rest of this season. For Connor Sheary, we have to be the 3rd best Connor in the league. I know that sounds bad until you remember that 2 of the Connors in the league are Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard. He is a tenacious fast forward. He doesn't give up on plays. He's going to chip in on offense on occasion, but he's going to find himself in the bottom 6 most nights. I know it's unfair to compare him to Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard, and I'm not seriously doing that, because when I say be the 3rd best Connor in the league, I'm not talking about points production. I'm talking about impact on your line and on your team. If your 4th line is your enforcer line and your 3rd line is your grinder line, Connor Sheary fits nicely into that 3rd line. He missed basically all of November and half of December. He's got 6 points through 16 games, which is roughly the kind of production you'd expect from him, but he is slotted in nicely to that 3rd line, and I genuinely think that he can have a major positive impact on that line. For Erik Cernak, we have a 7th straight season on the positive side of plus minus. Personally, I think plus minus is a more important stat for defensemen than it is for forwards. And in particular, it's a very important stat if you are not an offensive forward, and Erik Cernak most certainly is not. For reference, the most points he's ever put up in one season is 18 with 5 goals and 13 assists. Cernak is known for being a big, scary, shutdown style of defenseman, but the obvious gap there is that there's not a ton of offensive production. He's currently at a -2 for this season, and he's really never gonna see any time on the power play, but he is gonna see time on the penalty kill. So the deck is kind of stacked against him as far as special teams is concerned, but he's ended up as a positive in the plus minus for his first 6 seasons. There's no reason to think that he couldn't finish a 7th season on the positive side. For Luke Glendening, we have to finish his career in Tampa Bay. Let me be perfectly clear. I love Luke Glendening. I love him as a person. I love him as a player. He's perfectly capable in all aspects of the game. He performs well in the face-off circle. He blocks a lot of shots, meaning he's deployed on the penalty kill quite a lot. He's a capable skater. He doesn't have really a ton of weak points. He's one of those guys that you just can't help but root for. He's never won a cup. I would love to see him finish out his career and give it an honest try to go and finally win that first Stanley Cup. For Haydn Fleury, we have aggression, in parentheses, the opposite of Nick Perbix. I said I was going to stop dumping on Nick Perbix, and here we are in the same video. Haydn Fleury was the number 7 overall pick by the Carolina Hurricanes back in 2014, but he really has kind of struggled to find his game and find a system that fits him well in this league. He played 29 games with Tampa last season, most of it pretty unremarkable, and he's played 7 games with the Bolts this season, and for all of them, he's just been kind of there. In his own right, he's a solid player both on offense and on defense, but for a kid who is 6'3", 200 plus pounds, he is oddly passive. In this system with this roster, he's not going to get any time on the power play. He's not going to get any time on the penalty kill. So I would love to see him come into his own and redefine himself as a physically aggressive defenseman that can really help lock down the D zone. For Tyler Motte, we have an identity on this team. Tyler Motte was a little bit of a confusing signing for the Tampa Bay Lightning, at least in my eyes, because he wasn't that unique at what he brought to the team. He's fast, he's aggressive, he forechecks well, he plays well on the penalty kill, which sounds an awful lot like Connor Sheary. And so it was confusing for me because he's not like Connor Sheary, he basically is Connor Sheary, and you really don't need two Connor Shearys on your team. Like Connor Sheary, he's also been injured for a lot of the season. He's only made his way into 23 games during this season, plays on that same line with Connor Sheary. I think he fits that archetype well, but I would love to see him develop a little bit more of his own identity so that he can help fill a specific role on that third line more than he is right now. For Calvin de Haan, we have a healthy rest of the season. When Calvin de Haan is healthy, he is an adequate defenseman. There's nothing really outstanding about him, but there aren't any massive gaps in his game either. He's your perfect prototypical third pairing defenseman who is reliable and responsible, and you need him out there for X number of minutes every single night. That's Calvin de Haan when he's healthy. Problem is that Calvin de Haan has been bitten by the injury bug throughout most of his career. He's played 28 games this season and he's looked fairly adequate in those 28 games. I just really want him to stay healthy for the entire season so he can continue to fill that role well and provide some sense of reliability for the Lightning blue line. Getting to the goalies now. For Jonas Johansson, we have a support system. It's no secret I am a goalie apologist, and I've been saying all season that Jonas Johansson was thrust into a position where he was expected to do so much more than maybe he was ready for or capable of. And for many of his wins this season, and some of his losses, he has been the reason that the Lightning have remained competitive in those games. He deserves to have a solid defensive structure and support system around him so that when he is put in relief for Andrei Vasilevskiy, he doesn't have to worry about being the guy. He doesn't have to try to be Vasilevskiy every single night. He can just be Jonas Johansson and continue to keep the Lightning in games. Speaking of the big cat, for Andrei Vasilevskiy, we have a 30-win season. For most seasons, you would look at that and think that it's a no-brainer. But let's remember that Vasilevskiy missed the first 20 games of this season, and with 48 games left to play as of tonight, he is sitting at 6 wins. Now, Vasilevskiy isn't going to start all 48 of those games. My gut tells me it'll be somewhere in the 30 to 35 range. But if you can get Andrei Vasilevskiy 24 more wins in roughly 30 to 35 games through the rest of this season, not only would it almost assure the Lightning a playoff spot, but you would give Vasilevskiy 7 straight seasons of 30 wins or more, and he would move into the top 50 goalies of all time as far as wins are concerned. And finally, for head coach Jon Cooper, we have job security. The NHL has been a crazy coaching carousel as of late. 11 coaches fired dating back to the end of last season, 4 of which have come in the first couple months of this season. Cooper remains the longest tenured head coach in the NHL as of right now, ahead of Mike Sullivan and Jared Bednar. So you might be thinking, well, why would you be giving him job security? With the general play of the Tampa Bay Lightning declining over the past couple years, with the drama surrounding Steven Stamkos and with some fan displeasure towards the organization because of some decisions like that, it's not crazy to say that if the Lightning were going to go through a total rebuild, they also might make a regime change starting with Jon Cooper. Let's not fool ourselves. Jon Cooper has been a champion at every single level of hockey that he has coached, including the NHL. Not only is he the Lightning franchise leader in wins, playoff games, and playoff wins by a head coach, but he has also led the Lightning to 2 Stanley Cups, 4 Eastern Conference titles, and I'm genuinely shocked that he has not won the Jack Adams Award during his tenure as the Lightning head coach. And while it certainly seems like his job is secure for now, there are enough questions in my mind as we move towards the end of the season, like what if the Lightning miss the playoffs? What if they don't re-sign Steven Stamkos? What if management decides that it's time to go for the total rebuild? There is some clear bias on my part, and I will admit that, but I would love for Jon Cooper to remain with the Tampa Bay Lightning until he is ready to leave. And that's it. My bag of goodies is officially empty now. Before we wrap this up, let's look at the games we will be covering in next week's video. We only have 2 games to cover as we move towards the Christmas holiday, starting with a December 23rd game in DC against the Washington Capitals before coming home on the 27th versus in-state rival Florida Panthers at Amalie Arena in Tampa. That's pretty much it. That's all I got for this video. It's very late. I need to hurry up and edit and push this out, but thank you very much for watching. Thank you for giving me just a little bit of your time. If I haven't said it enough already, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, wherever you are, however you may be celebrating, with whomever you may be celebrating. I hope these holidays are simply wonderful to you. But until I see you again, remember, go Bolts, and I somehow made it through this entire video without referring to this as my sack. Ah, dang it.